Hello, my dear viewers. Welcome to a new episode. Under the title of The Happiness of All Mankind, we see one of the most emotional scenes ever. An old lady milking a cow in her farm. Suddenly, a soldier with a rifle shows up behind her. He stops and tells her in an assertive tone that she has to go and leave everything. To leave her home, farm, and cow, and go with him. To leave this area because simply being there is dangerous for her, and for all residents, not just her. The Chernobyl power plant, which was near the area, has exploded. And it spread a large amount of radiation in the areas. They have to leave quickly, because being there means they'll be affected by radiation. The woman starts telling a very emotional monologue. She said, "I'm 82 years old. I've seen everything, son. And I've lived here my whole life. And you're not the first soldier to come and ask me to leave. I've seen the October Revolution soldiers. I've seen Stalin and his famine, then World War I and World War II. I've seen soldiers, famines, wars, and blood. All of those told us that we should leave, but we told them we won't. So, you're here after all this. After all this. You're telling me now to leave this place. And for what? Radiation? For something I can't even see. You crazy?" My dear beautiful viewer, today I want to telephone you about the fear of things we can't see. No, not the radiation. That's just a metaphor, an opening act. And not about commitment. That's in the song Next to Us, which is the next recommended video. However, this episode is about a fear that came from older and simpler things. Things that were there before humanity itself. It was there 3.5 billion years before humanity. Now, allow me to have a dramatic exit, then come back to tell you about it. I want to arouse your curiosity, your attention, or even arouse pity. I just want to arouse you. Why aren't you aroused? Abo Mead, let me be honest and say, congratulations. You've aroused. Yes. Thank God. My suspicions. In 2000, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, announced the elimination of the measles disease in the United States. Congrats, everyone. Measles is gone. Wait. Abo Mead. What's measles? My friend, measles is one of the contagious viral diseases that affects children, or that used to affect children in very large numbers. And it caused high fever that sometimes reached higher than 40 C. And also a rash that looked like large flat spots. In a lot of cases, the disease in children would heal and disappear quickly. However, in other cases, especially in children of a younger age, or the ones with undeveloped immune systems, the complications of measles could lead to inflammations, brain damage, loss of some senses like hearing, or even death. Reports say that in countries like the US, children's death rates by measles, before vaccine discovery, reached 500 cases each year, and that's the reported ones. Predictions say that the real number is much bigger. And not so long ago, measles represented one of the causes of death for young children. Wait a second. What did you say? Vaccine discovery? How? Yes, my friend. Vaccine discovery. In 1954, scientists were able to find the reason that leads to measles infections, and they discovered that it's a contagious virus that spreads through aerosols in the air. And the truth is that it's a very contagious virus. A single person is able to infect a number of 18 to 20 people. And in 1963, the scientist John Enders and his group were able to develop the first vaccine against measles. They also got a license to use it in the United States. And this guy gets the title of the father of modern vaccines. He's the real deal, my friend. Then 5 years later, the commercial use of this vaccine began. They started giving it to children in wider range. From then, we started to quickly see its results. The number of infections are dropping. What is exactly the vaccine? It gives you living measles viruses. Alive and well. But, they are weak and dizzy. You can learn more about it in the important virus episode. We take one of the viruses, and bonk it on the head with a pan. Asterisk a virus asterisk is there too now? When the virus gets hit on the head, it gets dizzy. It gets wobbly. We put in the body, and the immune system identifies it. We say, "Look, Mr. Immune, that's the virus. Did you learn it? Did you see how it looks like? Did you know how to deal with it? When the fully powerful virus comes, you'll know who it is, and it can't hide from you no more, and you'll catch it. You'll remember." Quote. Here, the immune system is stimulated, and could face the virus. Therefore, the likeliness of complications of infections decrease. Really, they do drop. Here, the virology's job ends in regards to vaccines. We then go to the public health part that is related to the spread of diseases in communities. Since measles is a contagious disease that function by infecting a large number of people, especially kids almost all at once, so it causes a big pressure on the healthcare sector and higher chances of complications. But when we give these vaccines to a large number of children, the disease won't be able to spread. Therefore, the likeness of infecting more kids or more people decreases. That's what we call herd immunity, which was a term that got popular during COVID-19. And these aren't predictions or guesses. We've seen it with our own eyes then. We've seen cases drop in places like the US from millions of cases in the 60s and 70s to 20 and 30 cases in the 2000s. In 2004, for example, the number of cases infected by measles in the US were less than 40 cases. Wow. ABO Mead. That's a big win for medicine. Excuse me, ABO Mead. What you're saying is controversial, and there's inconsistency. Haven't you just told me wearing even the same shirt that this CDC DVD announced that the disease was eliminated in the United States in 2000? Or are we forgetting things now, ABO Mead? Or were you thinking BC? My friend, you're right apart from the tone. But let me tell you that this was announced due to the fact that firstly the number of reported cases was small, and secondly it doesn't spread among people. So, in short, it's no longer a threat to public health. However, just like anything beautiful in life, man comes and says, wait a second. I want to chime in. I want to reach in and mess it up. Humans would die if otherwise. The thing is they die when they do that. I want to play and mess around. If we look at the number of reported measles cases in the United States, we'll find that it clearly drops from the beginning of giving and developing vaccines, until it started to increase again starting from 2008, reaching one of its highest points for the first time in 2019. Since more than 20 years. Can you believe? So, cases were dropping, then suddenly rising, until it reached its highest level in 2019, and it reported 1282 cases. We were at 40 cases. We were almost there. But humans, they mess. In 2010, we were at 63 cases only. What happened, ABO Mead? We were moving forward. Why are we going backwards? I'll tell you, my friend, but before that I have to exit dramatically, then come back. How are things? Is it still suspicious, or did we move on from that? Still. For a bit. Okay. After that dramatic comeback by measles in 2019 in the United States, specialists started looking around wondering what happened. Why is there a measles comeback? And the answer was as always in finding the pattern. The what? Batter? No, my friend. The pattern. The first attempt to understand happened when scientists tried to check where these infection cases took place. And the answer was a bit concerning. Because the number of cases expanded across 31 states. However, the one common thing between all the measles cases was that it initially spread among groups of citizens who had a problem with vaccines. Individuals of the groups intentionally chose not to vaccinate their kids. And that could be for religious or political reasons, or even as a response to conspiracy theories that warn against taking these vaccines, and connects them to disorders like autism. You'll find that the rise of measles infections in 2014 was among communities known as the Amish, who usually live in isolated groups, and a lot of them are against vaccines. And in 2016 and 2017, the reported cases was mostly in Somalian minorities who are in states like Minnesota. And in 2019 itself, we'll find that the disease heavily spread between Orthodox Jews, who a lot of them also prefer not to vaccinate their kids. And according to a CDC statistic, probably a percentage that ranges between 75% to 80% from the infected cases each year come from these isolated groups. That are all linked by one thing, which is that individuals of these communities refuse the vaccination of their kids. And that's when we return to the word I told you about. Which one? ABO Mead. Batter? Pattern. My friend, it's batty what you're doing. But what we're talking about is pattern. And actually, interestingly enough, the pattern was full of battiness. Is it okay or not okay to judge people? The return of these diseases wasn't solely in the United States. Because it showed up in many other counties either for the same reasons, or because these countries don't get enough vaccines. But mainly, the absence of vaccines from the picture allows these diseases to spread again, and even stronger. The questions here is, why? Why humans? Why something like vaccines with all its obvious success, which is actually as obvious as it could be? Why would someone just simply decide to refuse it, or not give it to their kids? Important question. But before I answer, I'll exit dramatically and come back. I'll come back and tell you how one of the weirdest movements in history started, the anti-vaccine movement. One of the most famous stories that document the development of vaccines relates it back to an English doctor who worked in rural areas. His name was Edward Jenner. Dr. Jenner noticed that girls who milked cows in rural areas are less likely to be infected with smallpox. That's also an important role for science's dear friend, the pattern. There's pattern here. This pattern is that girls who work a certain job don't get a certain disease. However, they do get another similar disease called cowpox. It's way less intense and dangerous, but they have similar symptoms. There are recurring stories in the sources, even though some question them, that say that Jenner once heard a girl tell her friend, "My face will never be scarred, because I've had cowpox once, so that's it." The girl is referring to the violent scarring that happens a lot with the smallpox infections. Here, Jenner decides to do something weird. But it's okay. It's a good thing he did it. It's all for science. It's all for pattern. Dr. Jenner decided to scrape pus from infected cows and vaccinate the members of his house with it, specifically a kid called James Phipps. That's like Fatty Hattie here. And the result was that the people who received this improvised medical vaccination didn't get infected by smallpox. I'm embarrassed to tell you that when this guy knew that these people won't get smallpox. Oh no, abo mead. He gave them a virus just to prove his theory. My friend, did you notice the year I said? Notice that it's in the 1700s. So, the medical ethics field wasn't there at the time. We found out that this procedure, or a similar one, is called variolation, and it was popular ages ago. Some even relate it back to ancient Egyptians. And it was known in many other civilizations like China and India. We take fluids like pus from the blusters of disease-infected people, and then inject it in healthy people's bodies. Of course, they didn't know at the time that they were doing variolation, which we know today. They were just doing it out of love. And it's true that some medical historians say that this story wasn't free of some dramatic exaggerations, but they agree that this specific moment, we could say, is the moment when the first ever vaccine in the history of Western medicine was developed. And that Jenner is the one who coined the term vaccine, which is derived from the word vacca, which means cow in Latin. The weird thing is, to us as people in the modern age, that Jenner was under attack from a movement accusing him of madness. I feel, my friend, like this is a recurring pattern in all the characters we present on this show. Or else there is no plot. Imagine if he discovered something and was supported right away. What's the problem? Where's the plot? I wish to find a dramatic story that no plot, and that would be the plot. People, of course, said that he was disgusting. What do you mean put cow pus in our bodies? Are you crazy? You cow doctor think you can come and tell us, great doctors of Britain, what to do and what not to do? To the point that there was caricatures we see representing people who, after getting the vaccine, turn into cows. So, you could say that the anti-vaccine movement started with the first ever official vaccine in history. When the vaccine was there, people against it were there. But I don't want you to judge people back then. Their excuse was that the concept of vaccinations wasn't developed enough. It still wasn't strongly formed as it turned out to. And because people sometimes, because of how it was done, used to get other diseases from the midst of all these wounds. While we're taking from the patient's wounds and give to the healthy, we certainly transfer other things. We're talking about medicine in the 18th century, he probably transferred with his finger and sanitized it like this. It made sense for a disease like syphilis to spread. Imagine getting chickenpox vaccine with syphilis infection. Easy guys, there isn't a lot of room. But despite all that, my friend, what matters is that we managed to create the first vaccination for chickenpox, this dangerous disease that killed 30% of those who had it, millions of people. According to many reports till the 60s, chickenpox killed 2 million people yearly. Since 1900, it killed around 300 million people. Its survivors lived with its scars and marks for the rest of their lives. Our war with it kept going since prehistoric eras, it was before history itself. Until 1980, when the World Health Organization announced that this disease has ended in the world thanks to its vaccination efforts that were intense efforts that cost a huge amount of money. We no longer needed chickenpox vaccinations. Generally, nowadays we can say that we have three main types of vaccines. The first type, live attenuated vaccines, and as its name suggests, it's weakened. These are the beaten up viruses, like the MMR vaccine, against measles, mumps, and rubella. The second type of vaccines is called subunit vaccines, which is, also like the name, when we take a small part of the virus and give it to the body to identify it, like some COVID-19 vaccines that contains a part of the virus's spike protein. So the body would identify the virus when it gets infected, just because of that small piece. The third type is called inactive vaccines, and they have copies of the virus or the disease-causing element no matter what it is but dead, not just weakened, then give it to the body to identify it, also like some of COVID-19's vaccines, so they're harmless and can't multiply inside the cell. The most famous example for that third type is one of the main kinds of polio vaccines developed by the American Dr. Jonas Salk, whom we need to salute from this show. Why? Because not only did he develop this great achievement, he also gave up all his rights and patent to reach as much people as possible. Think about how much money that man could have made. He could have been a millionaire or a billionaire, yet he chose to not get profits and said his famous sentence, "There's no patent." Could you patent the sun? It belongs to everyone. According to the WHO's estimates, we have around 20 million people who can walk, move, and have a normal life. These people were subjected to complications of polio if not for that vaccine, plus 2 million deaths that the vaccine managed to prevent. Generally, the WHO says that the disease receded by 99% since the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. ABO Mead, vaccines look good so far, and are achieving great results, saving people's lives and changing them to the better. Chickenpox, polio, hepatitis, and COVID. Why are there people upset? What happened to the world? My friend, take a look at your watch. It's time for my dramatic exit. In a way, we can take back a huge part of the anti-vaccine movement to a certain point in history. The point of publishing a scientific paper in the Lancet Medical magazine in 1998. That paper's main author was a British doctor called Andrew Wakefield. It claimed that research found a connection between the MMR vaccination and children's autism. This study was carried out on 12 kids, and said, "See? Your vaccines cause autism. We're not shady, just throwing shade. Why are you trash-talking vaccines?" "I'm not trash-talking, just shading." That paper created chaos in the science field and between people. It went around everywhere. Oh my God, I'd be giving my son a vaccine and be the reason he gets autism. I would hurt my son myself? How am I a father then? What would I tell his mother? ABO Mead, with all due respect to your acting skills for the father role, can we go back to the so-called episode? If we won't bother you. Sorry my friend, I got carried away. A lot of parents were terrified, and some even decided to prevent their kids from vaccination. It's true that later on it became clear that this Andrew guy was actually a con man. A journalist in Sunday Times called Brian Deere published a long journalist investigation where he assured that Wakefield manipulated the results that he said he had reached. But unfortunately, debunking this type of news gets way less spotlight than it spread at first. Even with the Lancet's decision to withdraw the paper and apologize for publishing it, and with the UK's General Medical Council's decision to withdraw Wakefield's medical license of practicing medicine as a punishment for manipulating the results, the rumors remained circling around. Despite all that, the magazine withdrew the paper, the British doctors condemned the research, and the journalist published a report that the doctor is a con man, and the man's medical license was provoked. Yet the rumor still circled around everywhere and scared parents from having their kids vaccinated. After Wakefield's paper, researches were published in fifth-degree magazines that still try to connect between vaccines and autism. Excuse me, ABO Mead, if it was that obvious, how do you explain autism that appears in kids some time after vaccinations? Do you think that when you do this I'll be embarrassed? Your argument struck me? No my friend, my eyes are wide open and focused. I feel like you're so desperate, ABO Mead. That's true, my friend. I talk to myself, reply to myself, and make fun of myself while making fun of myself. Actually, the answer is too simple. Autism is usually diagnosed in kids when they're 3 to 6 years old, when parents start to notice some behavioral changes in their kids. That's the period when most kids receive their essential vaccines. But remember my friend, I'm sorry, what? I still don't understand. Correlation doesn't mean causation. Not because two things happen at the same time, then one of them causes the other. Not because there are many drowning incidents, and the ice cream sales are a lot, then the ice cream sales lead to drowning incidents. Not because things happen at the same time, that one causes the other. Even with more research that tried to dig into if any vaccine causes any type of autism, and all came back with negative connection, and although there's scientific consensus that there's no evidence for any connection between these two things, fear still crawls around. This fear is still going on because until now we don't know what the main cause behind autism is. We know there's mostly a genetic cause, and some environmental factors can have an effect, but we can't pin the exact reason that causes it. But let me tell you, my friend, during the emergence of autism symptoms, what's the key health event that happens in that period of a child's life? What, ABO? My friend, vaccination. That's the major thing that happens in a kid's life. He takes his vaccines. So that's when the false perception is formed that this causes that, although there's no scientific evidence saying this is related to that, or this causes that. Despite this, fear still kept crawling. This fear gets intensified when you find actors, famous businessmen, football and basketball players, and also politicians, that question vaccines and their importance for religious, political, or societal reasons, or even saying they wouldn't vaccinate their children. Actually, to understand this fear we need to take a step further than science. Where? ABO meet. Maybe Nuweba. Let me go for a dramatic exit and be back. My dear lovely viewer, the important question here: why do people ignore all these scientific facts? To be honest, that's not exactly the question. The real question is why people believe conspiracy theories. When it comes to this topic, you'll find it easy for people to believe conspiracy theories in general, or things relating to vaccines in specific. Conspiracy theories emerge a lot during disturbing times, and it's hard for man to predict what would the future carry. The harder things get, the more man searches for a defense mechanism to give him a concrete reason to understand and follow. Here, man needs a reason. That's how his brain works. Anything except seeing himself helpless. That's why COVID is no longer a scary and dangerous virus that makes us stay home, wash our hands and grocery bags, wear masks, and spray alcohol on each other's faces. It's a trick from who? Anyone. From CIA, KGB, or China, or even Mr. Lel Mikasa, anything. Get me an explanation. Or maybe the pharmaceutical companies that want to sell for profit. Shame on you all. You fell in the trap. All what mattered was for people to believe in some sort of power, a great power that I know what it is. It's the one pulling the strings of everything, and you all bought it. Thank God I'm not like you. What vaccine? Lol, look for another clown to fool. That's why, by the way, there was a movement of analysts that saw the discussion on vaccines as a discussion on narratives. Narratives and not science. Whoa, ABO mead, narratives also had arguments? Because science already said it's all good, and that vaccines are all good, and if people want to live more they should take them to protect each other, so all disagreement comes through the narratives. It isn't scientific anymore. It's way bigger than just that. Keep in mind that there's a point that leads these conspiracy theories to spread, especially in medical topics. If a guy asks, if I ate peas every day for 50 years, would something happen to me? Science will reply saying that, in the scope of information and according to existing evidence, I can mostly say nothing significant would happen. Eat and enjoy, in the scope of available evidence, and add more carrots. Is it more beneficial? ABO meat? Just tastes better. Science loves carrots. The conspiracy theory reply would tell him, you'll grow stems and branches. I know what I'm saying. You'll branch out, get green eyes, then look like a pea, and your girlfriend will flee the pea. Conspiracy theories are funny, that's why it includes jokes. This is probably one of the problems that many scientists face, that the science talk is always hesitant and skeptical, just like you, my friend. You're hesitant and skeptical. Your talk is filled with hesitance and skepticism, and you're hopeless. Your mom knows too. The science talk is always subjected to change, and there's always a space to wait for newer information, either through canceling the initial information or editing it. This is a foundational aspect of science itself. You can read a research paper and feel like the big scientist who wrote it was writing as a man was behind him with a baseball bat for every word. If he made a mistake or showed he's certain of an information, the man would hit him. That's what happens. Every word that a scientist says, he tries as much as he can for it to be the most accurate in that time with these information. Science sentences end with question mark, and not necessarily a full stop. Except the connection between vaccines and autism. This one's an exclamation mark. But when this science talk goes out to the public, normal people go, what? What's this hesitant man? His reasoning looks shaky, especially when, as a father who loves his children, I hear all that. I'm supposed to listen to people who aren't sure. What do you mean there's nothing 100% safe? So all of this could be unsafe? How can I give it to my kids? What would the saw? Enough please. ABO mead. We got it. You do that sometimes too, my friend, not just me. This fake dad role is all over me now. That's when scientists are confused, that what they want to say is that there's nothing in the world safe 100% or harmful 100%. You leaving your home isn't even a 100% safe. You living on the 5th floor isn't a 100% safe. Everything is possible anytime. That's statistically, of course. That's what I mean. That the problem is in the words sometimes, the humbling words and language that science uses, one that recognizes it has deficiencies that can be completed later on. It's completely different than normal language, especially that of conspiracy theories, which carries a lot of ignorance as bravery. This difference is very important, and we need to keep these expressions in mind. Not because a charismatic, confident person is saying something then he's right, on the contrary, he can push us over the edge. Not because someone is talking uncertainly with indecisive words then he's wrong. I started doubting you, abo Mead. They're all jump cuts, my friend. I say this in my defense. When it comes to vaccines, my friend, we can say that to some level vaccines, and listen to this, that's what I kept for the end. Vaccines became a victim of their own success. For example, if we looked at the most 20 countries that suffer from its individuals' hesitance to take vaccines, we'd find that most of them are European countries. Or USA and Russia. Little of them are African countries. In short, hesitance comes from the countries where these medical conditions are already solved, and not only solved, but disappeared generations ago, with new generations that never saw this deadly epidemic. Generations that don't know how that medical condition looked like. That's why our parents remember very well the polio vaccines. They care about it, because they saw with their own eyes the lives of those who had it. They saw it. So it was impossible for them to risk subjecting their kids to the disease. Here, a new generation of healthy people appeared who were benefited from the provided vaccines, but they didn't see the past. They didn't see when the disease killed 2 million people yearly. These generations thought that the norm is their present, and that there's no disease, because they don't know what led to where they are. That's why I say that vaccines are victims of their success. Because the vaccine that succeeded in eradicating epidemics has become an easy target to point at it and call for canceling it. Dude, it had you living in peace. Before that, millions of people died from these epidemics, but the new generations didn't witness that issue. They don't realize that we can relapse to that situation. Remember the old lady that we started the episode with? Our mate from Chernobyl series. She had some kind of logic according to her understanding, environment, and lifestyle. Her suspicion in the radiation came from her suspicion in the power of anyone who can displace her, and she saw a lot from them, like she said. Her suspicion in the radiation came from her even not seeing it. What's this radiation? I don't see it. Anything that's not a rifle is hard to get me killed. Buddha disease that I can't see, and the danger behind not vaccinating is unknown to me, because I don't see it. There's an epic logline that fits humans perfectly. That maybe what makes them different is that they're the best creatures to deal with things that they don't see. They can't hear it. We are the best creatures on earth to think, plan, and deduce. We deal with unseen, unheard, and non-concrete things. We medicate diseases and develop vaccines, and we can imagine how life would be when a huge number of the infected appear at the same time, so we try to prevent the spread of a disease through preventing the infection of a large number of humans. We are the great creatures that can deal with the danger they can't see. The real danger is in place when we concede to the fear, worry, and panic instincts, and follow them without taking a step back to think. Actually, my friend, fear threatens our biggest achievement in humanity. You know what's our biggest achievement in humanity? What? abo Mead. The old episodes and the new ones, looking at the sources, subscribing if we're on YouTube. It's the achievement summary. The most important one. Doesn't it make all achievements archived? Then it's an achievement. As long as they're archived, it's an achievement.